Arc speaking, and I've been itching to do this video for a very long time. That's right, all you beginners listen up, because today we're covering without a doubt the most important fundamental concept for bikes in Mario Kart Wii. This technique, or concept, and therefore the topic of today's video, is of course about speed preservation. What is speed preservation, and why is it so important? To understand that, let's turn to a more normal racing game, Forza. Hey, don't judge me, I don't have any better example. In Forza and in real life, you're constantly accelerating up to your top speed without actually hitting it, because you need to slow down for the turn so you don't go flying off the track. That means the fastest top speed isn't necessarily determined by the car, it's determined more so by the track. The same car could probably go much faster on a quarter-mile drag strip compared to a track with a bunch of turns constantly slowing it down. Now, hold that thought, and let's go back to Mario Kart Wii. Speed in Mario Kart Wii has a hard cap, one that's actually not that hard to achieve. Every bike in Mario Kart Wii technically has two speeds, the normal speed, and then their real top speed, which is their wheelie speed. And a lot of newbies tend to think that in order to get to top speed, you have to accelerate up to it. But the problem with that is wheelies only last for a couple seconds. So by the time you get close to hitting that top speed, the wheelie drops and you gotta start climbing all over again. How we beat this predicament is by using boost from mini turbos, starter boost, or speed items that then step down to your character's wheelie speed. That way you can move at the truest form of a combo's potential for the entire duration of the wheelie. So Arc, are you saying that this speed preservation thing is just drift when you're on a turn, and wheelie when you're on a straight? If you actually ask that question, then you're on the right track. Now, obviously it's not as simple as that. If it was as easy as it sounds, Lounge's 12-year-old Tier 1 army would be legends at this game. Now, what makes speed preservation so hard to do properly is because it's not one technique. It's rather made up by a bunch of smaller techniques that all require separate practice, that then comes together to make this technique. That's why I sometimes call it more of a concept, but it's also a technique, but it's more of a idea. It's you know, it doesn't matter. Let's break it down. The first thing we need to know about are wheelies, especially with a combo like Funky Flame, lose a ridiculous amount of speed when turning, even if you just barely touch it. So the first and most important step to doing speed preservation is practice getting good alignments. It actually helps to think of Mario Kart Wii as less of a racing game and more of a shooting game, as after you take a turn you need to make a split-second alignment to keep you from going off-road or into a wall. Needless to say, this part of the technique will require the most amount of raw practice, but there are sub-techniques that makes alignment easier and more consistent. Case in point, delay drifts provide a better alignment for turns either 90 or more than 90 degrees. And if you're overdrifting, that's what happens when you drift past the turn and don't get a mini turbo fast enough, so you end up holding the other direction, then start to implement stronger delays. This will provide more consistent alignments that makes it easier to go straight after the drift. Now, of course, I'm generalizing. No two turns in Mario Kart Wii are the same, so I'll be sure to make more videos in the future about which type of drift to use on which turns and why. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that. The next sub-technique in helping you go faster and get better alignments are what I'm going to call boosted wheelies. I already mentioned that turning in a wheelie slows you down, even though when you're in a wheelie, your character can't turn as sharp, making precise alignments much easier to do. What I did not mention is during the short period of time when you're in a mini turbo boost or shroom boost, you could wheelie and turn without losing speed. Actually, not only do you not lose speed, the max speed goes up because of the wheelie. So not only does this help with alignment, but it makes you go faster. Okay, now you should be able to get good alignments pretty consistently. So what happens when there's a straight too long for just one wheelie? This is where the sub-technique chain wheelies come into play. I made a video all about it, but the gist of it is there's a small timing window where you could input another wheelie without losing much speed. Chains are honestly not as important compared to choosing the right drift or doing proper boost wheelies, but they're good to know about, and when your timing is on point, chains could come in pretty clutch. Now once you get comfortable doing those three main principles of speed preservation, the next step is to try to release the mini turbo as quickly as possible, as your speed in a drift is much slower than when in a boost or a wheelie, so you want to minimize the time you're in a drift. Now those are the big topics when it comes to speed preservation. So now let's move on to the more niche stuff, like refreshed wheelies. Let's go to BC64. Notice how when doing the rail cut, we hop, which drops our wheelie, then pick it back up. I mentioned that wheelies don't last very long, so there are points in the track where we abuse the fact we are still in a boost. Here's an example on Mario Circuit 3. Look what happens when you don't refresh on the final boost panel. The wheelie drops right before you get to the turn. Compare that to refreshing the wheelie at the end of the boost and not having to chain at all. On Mushroom Gorge and on DSDS, we don't wheelie on the startup boost immediately for a similar reason, as Mushroom Gorge's first straight is just a hair short for one wheelie, and on DSDS it's barely short for two, so instead of getting an ugly chain, just delay the wheelie. Finally, the last thing I want to cover is when it's faster to not go fast. This is primarily targeted toward online players when in a group or a pack. One of the disadvantages of wheeling is if you get bumped, you lose next to all your speed, and if you were trailing an item, you lose that too. Realize when you need to sacrifice some of your wheelie speed to save yourself from getting killed or comboed, as there are times when you should slow down ahead of time instead of being forced to slow down, most of the time in the worst situation possible. It's hard to give examples for every situation, but as you practice and play more, you'll get a feel of when to do what. Now I want to clarify, speed preservation isn't something that you're going to learn overnight. I would argue out of the entire competitive community, less than 1% actually mastered true speed preservation. So don't take it too hard if you struggle, or if you drive even worse than you used to. This concept will take time for you to truly comprehend and absorb into your psyche. So keep practicing. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to do the YouTube stuff on the way out, and happy racing.